A commotion track.
Drippin' so wet, drippin' like a pet. Drippin' so wet, drippin' so wet, drippin' like a pet. Drippin' so wet, drippin' like a pet. Drippin' like a wet, drippin' so wet, dead the drippin' so wet, dead drippin' like a pet. Pet. Not the dumb like my wily coyote. Slim Sammy on the fucking mic, Ike. I'm gonna rap this shit, no need for a fat dyke. I'm gonna rap non-fishing bike on RuneScape. Oh, drip so wet like a dripper like the corn of the cob. I'll be drooling for a pussy. Drooling for a pussy. Drooling for a pussy. Drilling for a pussy. Drilling for a pussy. Like pussycat dolls coming on the stalls, halls of illusion, noise pollution, coming strong, coming man, coming on the rubber band man. Feel the Jackie Chan right over the gate. Oh, drip it so wet, yo, drip it so wet, do the drip it so wet, do the drip it so wet, gotta drip it so wet, gotta drip it so wet, drip it so wet. Drip it so wet, drip it like a pet, drip it so wet, drip it like a pet, drip it like a wet, drip it so wet, do the drip it so wet, drip it like a pet. Pet. Bust that rump, coming off the dump like a motherfucking chump. Coming on the genie, the Houdini. Coming in the Wishing Foundation and a weenie in the bottle. Wishing Foundation, coming off the dump like no damn project. Coming off the flow with the fucking logic. They come big man, they come in big bird. Coming off the dome because the bird is the word. Fuck it up, drip it so wet. Drip it so wet, gotta drip it so wet. Gotta drip it so wet, gotta make the pussy wet. Coming off the dome, down the popping of the pussy. Ribbon in her rapping more than Hennessy. Gushy, coming off the lushy. Running like a Marvin, starving the garden. Oh, dripping so wet, dripping so wet, dripping so wet, dripping so wet. Wanna dripping that pussy. Coming off the dome, make a drool for her pussy. Coming off the dome, wanna spin in the microphone. Dripping so wet, dripping like a pet. Dripping so wet, dripping like a pet. Dripping like a wet. Drip it so wet, dead the drip it so wet, dead drip it like a pet. Pet. Drip that pussy, Maxi melt. I'm coming off the dome, no need in the cracky weather belt. Coming off rap, will leave you a fucking welt. Coming off the dome like a velvet pie. Coming off the dome till the day I die. Drip it so wet, like I wanna gonna bet. Coming off the dome, mother wet, trap, drip it wet, pet, drip it wet. Drip it wet, pet, like a dean, lean, mean, fine machine. I'm rapping this a shit, representing Eugene. Cornmeal, fourth meal, four-wheel, sex appeal, coming like rap flows, rapping like I'm not searching for a record deal. I'm in the bag of records. I'll collide with record labels, but I'll never alert into the level of search for the next record label to join in. Actually, just be signed to it. Come and wanna know it. Drip it so wet, 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 drip it like a pet, drip it so wet. Drip it like a pet, drip it like a wet, drip it so wet, dead the drip it so wet, dead drip it like a pet. Pet! Drip it so wet, wanna bet, drip it so wet, bombing on the set. I drip so wet, I make a drip so wet. You wanna bet, you'll be jizzing for days by the hour. Otherwise, you're just wet and sour by the pickle. Another fucking pickle on the motherfucking tickle. Coming off the doom, now the rapping's been tingle. Ready to pringle, ready to mingle, ready to jingle to one horse open sleigh. Drip it so wet, drip it so wet, drip it so wet, yeah, drip it so wet, did the drip it so wet.